Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before I get into the meat of the matter, you might be wondering why I went to the refreshment tank first, but as a player, that was part of my preparation to be ready to go out and bowl. So when the time arrived, the captain, I didn't have to ask for a drink break during the game to save time. So as I'm getting ready to have what I call a test match bowling spell, I have to prepare myself first. It's kind of strange when I was asked to come for the Tiger Pataudi lecture. Someone you've heard about for quite a lot. And what I found strange was, as a kid growing up, my first remembrance of Test cricket was India at Sabina Park, and Bishan Bedi the captain, Michael Loden bowling, and a few Indians in the hospital. And then the next thing was Bishan Bedi being the true leader, put the white flag up and surrender. And you might criticize him now, but just looking back at it before I get into the meat of this, that was a sensible move by a good leader, by a captain who figured by his own judgment, the players that were left to go on bat might not be able to take care of themselves against who was at the time one of the fastest bowlers in the world. People might want to criticize, but as a captain or as a leader, you have to make that call at some point in time. And I just think that at that time, Bishan Bedi did the right thing in his own estimation. We can do what we want to think about it after and criticize or agree or disagree. But as a youngster, you'll probably hear more about that in the speech as we go along. But that was something that I remember vividly. And the next thing I remembered was on my tour here of India, we had Sir Wesall as manager. I've been on tour with other guys, David Alford, Jackie Hendricks. And what was amazing was that whenever they spoke about Indian cricket and leadership, Tiger Pataudi's name was always at the forefront because of his braveness, his exuberance, and his never say die attitude. And it just goes back because Wesall, who we know is Reverend Wesall today, he always tried to educate us. And whenever he spoke about leadership, it was Indian Tiger Pataudi or West Indies Sir Frank Worrell. And what he said about those two gentlemen that evolved on me, and it will stay with me as long as I'm alive on the earth, was just like how Tiger Pataudi brought the Indians together, Frank Worrell did the same for the West Indies, in the sense that he treated everybody equal and he wanted to do well. The team came first and he did what he believed in. So let me just get into the meat of it, and it's really an honor to be here, to be asked. So I want to thank all the organizers for thinking about me at this point in time to come to deliver the Tiger Pataudi lecture. I mean, he was the first person to go into getting the team that he wanted, and the first captain to have 4 spinners. So when I was asked to come and say, well, I mean, I am from the land of pace. We believe in pace bowlers. But Tiger believed that if he had 4 good spinners, he can win a game of cricket. And that to me was what he believed in and what he pursued. I mean, Clive Lloyd had 4 fast bowlers, and he believed that that was his strength. But at the end of the day, you still need a captain to go out to lead the men, and that's what Tiger did. Honestly speaking, I've never had the opportunity to interact with Tiger Pataudi, but such is the fame as a captain that even though I have never met him or never seen him play, I know very well that he's one of the greatest captains in the game of cricket. I can very well remember we came to Calcutta to play in the Euro Cup, and our manager David Alford, who played at the same time as Tiger, used to tell us about Tiger and his captaincy. It was listening to our manager that I first started taking interest in the Prince. Later on, I came to know a lot about him, although we never met. Tiger Pataudi played to win. He was not shy of attacking and to win matches. He devised a plan. As I said earlier, he went with his 4 spinners. He created a golden era of spin in Indian cricket. He relied on spin because India never used to produce good fast bowlers, as we heard from my good friend Kapil Dev. There was no Kapil Dev or Srinath in the makeup when Tiger led the team. Neither did he had someone like Mohamed Shami or Kumar, nor Ishan Sharma. Still, with no such limitation, Tiger Pataudi became globally famous as a captain. Qualities of a good captain is what was bestowed in those gentlemen. I think to become a good captain, you need to gain the trust of your colleagues first. They must look upon to you as someone who will never say something in front of them and something else behind their back. The most successful captain in the history of the game are the most trusted ones too. I am sure that Tiger Pataudi did that very easily, because we can still hear people like Bishan Bedi or Prasanna, who played under him, talking very highly about their captain. You need to be a very special person to be remembered for such a long time. And Tiger was, of course, someone very, very special. When I was the captain of the West Indies, I used to encourage friendly dialogues more. I have always believed that a captain should always be like a big brother, and I try to do that. I preferred calling my teammates to my room to have open conversation, a little bit of joking here and there, and in between, and also discuss cricket. It worked for me on several occasions. I went on to realize later that those friendly conversations would ease the tension before a game or calm down the nerves. But I must say, there are some captains who graduate themselves from the big brother's role to become big father. Tiger Pataudi became one such leader, in my opinion. Clive Lloyd was one of the West Indian captains who attained that status of big father. I played just one series under Clive Lloyd, and that series was enough to understand why he became most successful West Indies captain. Even though I was a newcomer, he came to me and asked what kind of field place I wanted. I could not believe my ears. I thought, as a newcomer, I don't have a right to expect such freedom of speech. I thought the captain would set the field and I would just go to bowl according to his plans. With that one piece of gesture, Clive the captain won my heart. Straight away, I am told Tiger shared the same chemistry with his players. No wonder he is still adored by colleagues so much. I see a lot of debate taking around one topic in cricket today. Who should be in charge of a team? Who is the boss? The captain or the coach? Well, I was a captain once, and now I am an interim coach of the Bangladesh cricket team, and as a bowling coach. Just been appointed recently, interim for a short tour of Sri Lanka. But I still strongly believe and feel the captain is the one who is in charge. He has to run the ship. There are captains who lead from the front, like Tiger Pataudi used to do. People still talk about his 2 innings in Melbourne against an Australian attack, which had Graham Mackenzie and David Renneberg. And they were genuinely quick bowlers. History tells us he hit some spectacular shots in those 2 innings, where he scored 75 and 85 respectively. But what stunned me about those 2 innings was the fact that he was playing all these shots standing almost on one leg, as he had suffered a hamstring injury and also had missed the first test. But India was not doing well at all, and so he had to play in the second test, even though he was far from being fit. Now imagine as if not having one eye was not big enough handicap. This man had to come out and bat with one leg. So in tough Melbourne condition, with one eye and one leg, he produced 2 of the best innings in a test match. Hold on. Even if that's not enough, I am told Tiger Pataudi didn't have his own bat. And I heard that just now. Everywhere he went on to bat, he used to pick up one that was laying in the front of the door. Now, I am from the Caribbean, which is known for its carefree approach. But even I could not remember any West Indian batsman who didn't have his own bat. Viv Richards used to love his bats. He would cherish it like it's his baby, and sometimes he would even sleep with that bat. Someone like Brian Lara would have 10 bats in his bags that he would knock up with to find which one was his favorite. I mean, Sachin Tendulkar, Kohli, Dhoni, Smith, just to name a few. All these guys have treasured bats that they use now as, it's just special bat. They'll practice with one and they'll play the test match or the T20 or whatever version of the game is with another. But this man, just carefree, the talent that he had, he would just pick up any bat and he was ready to go. Now, why I mention about Tigers innings in Melbourne is because it's important for the leader to set example with his own performance. I have been fortunate enough to see and also be a part of one of the best captains knock ever played in Test cricket. When a little genius called Brian Lara played that magical innings of 153 not out to win a historic Test match against Australia at the Bridgetown, Barbados. Now, historians and cricket critics who always laughed at my batting and kept reminding me that I have the maximum ducks in cricket and all, need to go back to the scoreboard of that match to understand how good a batsman I was. I was partnering Brian for the last wicket when we reached the target. Yours truly, I remember telling Brian straight away, just after Courtney Ambrose got out, everybody looked up, and I mean, a few people at Kensington Oval was thinking of getting up to leave because we still needed something like 12 or 15 runs, and I was the last man going out to bat, and as everybody would have it, I am the bunny, so to speak. But one thing I remembered, I went to Brian Lara and I said, the only way we will lose this Test match today is if you get out. And then he looked at me as if I was serious, and I says, Skipper, because he was the captain, the skipper, everything is on this series, and if we lose this Test match, it's not because of my fault, but your fault. So you have got to see us home by winning this Test match. I survived a few deliveries from Glenn McGrath and Jason Gillespie, and the rest is history. Brian hit the winning run. If you look at the scorecard, it still have me not out duck, but that was one of the best duck I probably have ever made. And that's just an example of a captain leading from the front. And I'll just digress a little bit. In one of my stints as captain, I remember we were playing in a Test match in New Zealand at the Basin Reserve. And the West Indies made something like 500 plus, maybe 560. Junior Murray had his first Test 100. He was the wicket keeper. And after he got the 100, I called the team in, and I went over to congratulate him to say, well played. And when I went to shake my wicketkeeper hand, it just wouldn't happen. So as a captain then, I had to make a decision. Jimmy Adams, you'll have to keep for me. And everybody was looking at me as to what's happening. But my thought was if he was overjoyed to get the 100, but if he was not able to control a shake hand, how was he going to catch a ball? So I said, take your time off, get some rest, Jimmy, come and keep. Jimmy had made 100, I think Brian Lara got some runs in the match. Everybody had chipped in, Keith Atherton. And one thing that stuck in my memory was the coach of the New Zealand team at the press conference that evening said, oh, well, if the West Indies can bat for a day and a half, this is going to be a drawn Test match because we'll just bat for another day and a half, and then the Test match will be drawn. Well, I decided to lead from the front in that particular Test match, and for those who like to check the stats and check the history, it was something that sort of spurred me on as a captain. The game was over in, if not 2.5, maybe 3 days. We bowled Sri Lanka out, we bowled New Zealand out for not many, and to date it was my Test best of getting 13 wickets in the match and for 50-something runs. But the point is that because the challenge was thrown down by the New Zealand coach, and all our boys were pumped up that let's prove him wrong. In our team meeting that night was, how dare you? How can you say it's going to be a drawn Test match? And as a captain, I decided to go and lead from the front, and the rest was history. We won the game in a couple of days and ended up winning that series. Now, to just talk about some other captains, someone like a Virat Kohli. You know, when a leader wants to improve as a team, he would be able to take the ship forward. I am not surprised to see Virat doing well as a captain or as a cricketer. I had seen the fire in his eyes long back. I did accept their invitation and went to, sorry, I missed something. Sorry about that. My apologies. I'll have to backtrack just a little bit, just bear with me. Right, here we go. I jumped a little bit too thick. Virat Kohli scored, just to come back to it, Virat Kohli has scored the same amount of runs in an innings in South Africa, but India still lost the test in Centurion. Nevertheless, I think Virat is a tremendous character who brings a lot of positive energy to the team. I have seldom seen him captain leading from the front so consistently. Match after match, I see a lot of debate on Virat's aggression and attitude, but I fail to understand why people are losing sleep over that. I watch him on TV and I tell myself, hey, this guy is good for cricket. He brings so much passion and energy into the game that he is always hungry for more and more. How desperate he is to win every time that he takes the field. That's not a bad thing in sport. That's not a bad thing in life either. I think he's an excellent cricketer and can finish as one of the finest captains of this game. He reminds me a lot of Viv Richards, who just have this never say die attitude. And I'm sure in time to come, Virat will understand the players a little better because he will mature. I mean, I had a personal interaction with him on a few occasions. I did have the opportunity to interact with him when they toured the West Indies. No matter how aggressive he is on the field, Virat knows how to respect the seniors. He always stays grounded while talking to someone elder to him. And I had experienced that personally during their tour of the West Indies, as I mentioned earlier, when Anil Kumble was the coach of the Indian team. On that tour, and I met Anil over dinner. Anil asked if I could come to speak to the Indian bowlers. And I said yes, no problem. Then Virat came to me personally with a lot of respect and says, you know, the coach has invited you in, thanks for coming to speak to the boys. And they invited me to the dressing room. Not many teams these days, I mean, it was in the West Indies, the game was in St. Kitts, and not many, I was a selector for the West Indies, but not many people would, and it was just a first class game, but not many teams would have invited the opposition in to speak to their bowlers, and probably not many other person would have accepted because it's the opposition. But because it's cricket and we try to help to get the game to grow, I could not, and Anil Kumble was such a good friend because of the way we played, I could not say no. But what struck me was when he decided to encourage the bowlers to listen. I remember him saying to them, you know, whatever experience you can gain from Courtney, you should take it on board. This just showed that the guy is so proactive as a captain, he means business, and he was willing to improve his team's bowling and do well as a whole unit, even though as a batsman. So besides his personal glory, he was looking for a team's achievement. You know, when a leader wants to improve as a team, he would be able to take the ship forward. So I am not surprised to see Kohli doing well as captain. I had seen the fire in his eyes. I did accept the invitation and went to speak to the Indian bowlers. I think there was Mohammad Shami, Inshad Sharma, Yadav, and Kumar. I was amazed when the coach decided to sit in and listen. But the most token gesture to me was when Virat came to me after and thanked me for speaking to the boys. And then the next thing he says to me, we are going to Antigua next. I would like to meet up with Viv Richards. I made the contact, and when I contacted Viv just to ensure what was happening, he said, yes, he's going to go and meet them at the hotel. It just shows the passion he has for the game, and he's in the Caribbean seeking out whosoever he thinks can benefit him and the team in the interest of Indian cricket. And for me, you know, that's a student of the game who was willing to learn and just was not just thinking about himself, but the team. To me, on that particular tour, he showed a lot of maturity. It comes to where people ask the question, you know, can superstars be leaders too? Coming from the West Indies, I have never been short of fitness and genius. I grew up watching Michael Olin, who was my idol. We came from the same island in Jamaica, and we played for the same club, Melbourne. For those who have toured the Caribbean, you know that Melbourne is one of those clubs that has produced a number of West Indian cricketers, myself, Michael Holden, Marlon Samuels, Robert Samuels, just to name a few. There's a guy called Arthur Barrett who I think toured India back in the days. So it has a very rich history of test cricketers or international cricketers. The fortunate thing for me was when I made my first tour. My first roommate was Michael Holden, so it was an easy transition for me. Rooming with your idol, playing on the same team with your idol, and we came from the same club. But in terms of superstars of the game, the West Indies produced two of the greatest batsmen, I think, of all time, in Vivian Richards and Brian Charles Lara. They both went on to captain the country as well, and they have been pretty successful leaders. So I don't believe that superstar status could be any hurdle for being a good captain. Only thing is you learn with time and you get matured. Lara was a bit adventurous at the start, but he matured with time as a captain. The difference with Viv Richards and Lara was that Viv just didn't like losing. When he played, just as a player, and then when he came as a captain, he'd set high standard. And once you knew what he was about or what he wanted to achieve, it was easy for you to fall in line. So Viv was the type of captain who you might want to compare a little bit with Virat Kohli. He was arrogant, he was passionate about the game. But as always, just wanted to win. There was no word called defeat in Viv's dictionary. And I think that Virat resembles a lot of that as a captain. He has Viv aggressiveness and positivity, and like Viv, Virat wants to win every single day, every single moment that he spends on the field. And unlike a lot of other experts, I don't want Virat to mellow down. I don't want him to cut down on his aggression and become an emotionless robot. I think that cricket needs expressive characters like him. It's good for the audience as long as he's not crossing the boundary. You need a Bjorn Borg, but you also need a John McEnroe to spice it up. To make the contest even more competitive, Virat is aggressive in his own way without being disrespectful to anyone. Let him be like that. He will just need a bit of time to know his players and know how to get the best out of them. As I said, for me, a good captain must have a good plan to win games. Tiger had that plan. He had 4 spinners. He didn't have a good fast bowler, so he went with spin, and it worked. With the likes of Bedi, Chandra Prasanna, he gave birth to the golden era of spin bowling in India. Tiger had 4 spinners. Clive Lyall had 4 fast bowlers, but both of them devised unique strategy, win games for the country. Both were successful, although the strategies were completely opposite to each other's. A good captain must be able to bring in change in cricket and keep his footprint on the history books forever. This is why I am a big fan of Imran's captaincy as well. I saw from the video that he was the first speaker, here and rightly so. He changed Pakistan cricket with his vision, knowledge, and positive approach. Most importantly, he encouraged and backed youngsters like Wasim Akram, Waqar Yunus, and Javid to dream a dream and push them to have great careers in the game. He produced a champion team. Hearing about Tiger, I find there must be a lot of similarity between him and Imran in the way they led their teams. And I mean, as a youngster again, I go back to when I played county cricket for the first time. I played for Gloucestershire, and Imran Khan played for Sussex. And for those who don't know, as a youngster, when you just start playing, you respect your elders, so to speak, and you do the right thing, and you do whatever you have to do around them. And I remember this particular game was at Bristol. And back in those days, I wasn't so much of a bunny with the bat, and I think I was batting number 9 or 10 for Gloucester. And Sussex was running through us. It was Imran Khan, Gartleroux, and myself and another tailor. Might be Jack Russell was putting on a little partnership. And I managed to play what I thought was a nice, crisp cover drive. But it wasn't just a cover drive. I did move, you pose for the camera, it's a big Imran Khan, hit him for 4, and you're happy. So I said to myself, that's good. And Jack came down to applaud me, and the next delivery I got hit under the rib cage, under the heart, so to speak, and I kind of folded up. And I remember saying to him, so, I mean, because as someone that you respect, you know, Imran, what's that? He says, in his Pakistani voice, man, if you're going to drive like that, I'm going to bounce you. And it just goes to show that even though we respected each other, he still has his own pride and his own respect. And because I took the liberty of playing this cover drive, he's going to just remind me that, you know, he's still around. And that's what good leaders do. They remind you that they're around. Now, there has been a revolution in Indian cricket in recent times. And we have seen in the last series that Virat Kohli's Indian coming out with 4 fast bowlers. I saw on television and told myself, that's not too bad. There was a time when we didn't have to think twice about one strategy if the opponent was India. Straight away you play 4 fast bowlers, bang it in short to the guys, send the 90 miles per hour missiles past their nose, and then we will see what happens. For India to come out of their spin legacy and play 4 fast bowlers was indeed a revelation. And I told myself, so they have decided to give it back. Being a fast bowler myself, I like what I'm seeing. I just want to go back to what, when I was captain again, we had a test match at Chandigarh. We were 1-0 down in the series. And West Indies had never lost. And it was my first away game as captain, first away tour as captain. And we lost to Bombay. The little master got some runs, didn't get 100, I think got 80 something. And in a game that could have gone either way, Anil Kumbli came out and won the game with Srinath for India. We were 1-0 down going to the test match. The second test was on the flattest of wicket you can think of, and Sachin got something like 184, and some other guys chipped in, and India made a lot of runs. Azharuddin probably got some runs as well. And I think both teams probably batted once in that game. That's how flat the wicket was. So we were going to Chandigarh now, can't win the series, need to win the test match to level the series. And for some strange reason, we got a wicket with a little bit of grass. And whenever you give a fast bowler a chance, he's going to go hunting for blood. It's like a vulture. And we won the toss and decided to bat because we have to try and chase the game. So we need to know what's happening and try to bowl India out twice. So we have to set the pace. And we got some runs. India came and batted, they got bowled out. And then we batted the second time and we needed quick runs. And we were going very well. And Brian was on 90 something. And for some strange reason, there was a feather little nick. The umpire said not out towards Venkat, and Brian walked, which I think was very good sportsmanship, which I'll address a little bit later. But the whole aspect of that was we now declared, and we have, I think, 15 or 20, maybe less. We had a couple of overs the evening, maybe half an hour bowl, and then all day the next day. And for those who can remember, the Indian openers was Tendulkar and Prabhakar. Maybe Tendulkar was 3, but Prabhakar was the opener. And unfortunately for him, he went into a desperate captain who wanted to lead from the front, who wanted to try to give his team a chance of winning the match. And on that occasion, a ball went between helmet and he got hit in the face, and there was like a pool of blood all over. And I think India just didn't recover from that. So just to give you an example of, fighting fire with fire, we ended up winning that test match and drawing the series. And everybody was saying that it was because of what happened the evening before. And then psychologically as a captain, I knew then and there that we had a chance of winning the test match just because of the firepower that I had in my arsenal. I mean, we didn't have Courtney Ambrose on that tour, but we had some other guys who were capable enough to deliver the bombs, and we did so. So it's good to see that India is now fighting fire with fire. The future of Test cricket and IPL. These days, India is also the land of IPL and T20s. While I have no doubt that Test cricket is still the biggest test to judge a cricketer, one cannot ignore the demands of the paying public. People enjoy T20 as a sport, and that should be respected. I remember I was there in the MCC committee, And we have at least 9 captains in the committee when we met ICC Cricket Committee. They had just 3 members. I think there was Mark Taylor and 2 other former cricketers, Comley and someone else. But in our committee, we had Mike Atatan, Alex Stewart, Raul Dravid, Martin Crowe, Sean Pollock. I mean, the list went on. But there was like a 15-member committee, Tony Lewis, Jeff Boycott, and at that time, Mark Nicholas, he looked at us and he says, I mean, this is the ICC, which is the governing body of cricket. And he says, this is our committee, but you guys over there, I mean, the high-profile people who was on our committee, he felt intimidated. And the reason why I mention that is that when you are in control of the sporting body, you need to have effective people who understand the game and who have played the game before. And I mean, we at that time, in that said meeting, we proposed day-night test match because we think that test cricket needed an injection, and we proposed a test championship. This was probably about 10 years ago, or anywhere between 7 to 10 years ago. Now it's been talked about, and the reality might come through that we'll have that part of the game. So, I mean, it's better late than never, and I applaud the ICC for listening to the MCC and for both to be working together in partnership, because it's the only way forward to try to push this game. And I'm sure that if Tiger was still around, he would still want to be pushing for test cricket as much as we are at the moment, because it's the one game as players you get a chance to express yourself. You could have 2 bad days, but if you're good enough, you could recover on the 3rd or the 4th day to make a mark of your own. There will be objections, but one should also allow the game to evolve. There was a time when one-day cricket was being introduced. There were a lot of apprehensions being made. A lot of people objected to the idea. But the one-day format went on to become hugely successful. And not only that, we have been deciding the world champions on the basis of that format since 1975. You should be ready to embrace the changes according to the demand of the age and know how to remain open-minded. After all, the game is for the public, and of the public, their wish should be priority. Now, while talking about one-day cricket, I can remember my heartbreak way back in 1983. World Cup, West Indies, India. They're taking me back to the 25th of June, 1983. Lords again, not anymore. It was a complete heartbreak. I can still remember vividly. I was in England itself at that time as a 21-year-old. I was playing some league cricket way up in the bushes in a place called a club called Tyndale in Exham, which is near Newcastle. If you go on the map, or these days you might be able to Google and find it, but back in those days, you would not be able to find it. I remember India getting all out for 183, and at the break, everyone was predicting a hat-trick for the West Indies. I don't know what came over my mind. I just said, cricket is a funny game. You never know what might happen. As I was on the field and we were playing, someone came running down to find leg where I was feeling and said, the West Indies are on the verge of defeat. Now, even though I had made that comment, I could not believe it. I did not expect such a dramatic collapse. Many years later, India went on to win the 1983 World Cup, and that was history. Many years later, I broke the record of the man who had beaten us to win the World Cup in 1983. I remember the wicket. It was Henry Alonga, caught waiver lines, bowled Courtney Walsh at Sabina Park. And I went on to pass Kapil Dev to become the highest wicket taker in the world. The biggest memory of that record came when Kapil Dev himself called to congratulate me. All the way from India, I had a phone call on the field of play at Sabina Park. And I remember it vividly to this day when he says, Courtney Walsh, congratulations on being the world highest wicket taker. It couldn't happen to a nicer person, a friend of mine, all the very best, and he organized a bottle of champagne for me. And I mean, we were always friends before because he played for Worcester when I played for Gloucester, but it just showed the nature of the man and the stature of the man. And I bumped into him last time I was here when Bangladesh was playing in the one-off test, and the respect is there between us mutual. But I remember also something he had said to me that stick out to this day from a bowling perspective, you know. He says, bowlers are always underrated, right? And in his own view, we don't get much kudos for the things that we have done. It's because cricket is a batsman's game. And I remember him saying to me, something should happen in terms of like, when I broke his record, there should have been recognition in terms of official, like an official handover. So like he's handing over the crown to me, and then when someone, like the person who brought the record after me handing over the crown to them. And so that there's a tradition or something about it, so the guys are recognized. I mean, and I agreed with him because it's the only chance or the only time sometimes the public knows, because a lot of people weren't at Savannah Park at the time when I broke Kapilev's record, probably would have known who Kapilev was. But I'm sure if he was in the stand or if he was allowed to come and hand over something personally in the West Indies, maybe handing over the crown or whatever you want to call it, and you know, he's been recognized in whichever way it's done. To me, it would have been a token gesture, but we live and we hope. We live and we hope. I like the way fast bowling is again getting prominence. I like the Indian fast bowlers, South Africa, West Indies coming back. Bangladesh has a few, Australia, England. So the fast bowling is on the rise again. And hopefully, we'll come back out and we'll have world-class fast bowlers at all formats of the game that people want to go out and watch. But I want to just go back to something I saw on the screen earlier and make mention of it in terms of my own self-belief and just the spirit of the game, and I'm not going to blame anyone. And with this, I will just probably speak about it to try to bring back the memories. It was a World Cup, Reliance Cup 1987 in Pakistan, Lahore. Malcolm Marshall wasn't with us. And I remember Captain Viv Richards and manager Clyde Walcott came to me. This was my third year of West Indies cricket. And they said, young man, there's no Michael Oldham, there's no Joel Garner, there's no Malcolm Marshall. So you will have to lead the attack. We had Tony Gray, Patrick Patterson, myself, Ian Bishop, L.D. Baptiste, and I think Roger Harper, and Winston Benjamin were like more the main bowlers. But of all those bowlers, I was the most experienced because I had played before. And I remember the first game, I was doubtful to play because I damaged my toe. And because of what captain and manager said to me, I forced myself to play. Cut a hole in my shoe for the first time and went through the pain barrier discomfort. No excuse. What we didn't see on the clips was probably the catch that was dropped in the same over. That would have won the game for us. Eldin Baptiste, I think, put the catch down. Quadir got back on stride because not only did the catch got dropped, it went for 4. And, head down, disappointed. But I remember running into bowl, and just suddenly, when I looked, Salim Jaffa is down there, and I'm here. Which, in the rules of the game, he's cheating. He shouldn't be out of his crease. But because of how I was brought up, you have to play the game in the spirit of the game. So I had us to warn him. So I stopped and sold it, and come on, what are you doing so far? When others was probably saying, take it out, you could have taken the bails off. I would not have broken the rule. But I would have won the game. But because of how I was brought up, because of how I was brought up, I had us to do that. And I say to mention that in the World Cup that just concluded with the Youth World Cup and the one previous to that, we had something similar that the West Indians did twice. Now, I'm not blaming the kids for it, but I think that if there's a system or if there's things in place to guide these youngsters, to let them know a little bit more about the spirit of the game, we would see less of that, because the last West Indian captain apologized for his action. I think everything just happened out there in the heat of the moment. And maybe a coach or a manager could have sort of guided him or give him that impetus. Not blaming anyone, But I think he was man enough to come out to say if he had us to do it over again, he would not have probably appealed for the wicket. So we need to educate these kids, give them a chance as to what's happening, and let them know that it's not just to win at all costs. You want to win also with the spirit of the game, because to me that is very, very important as the longevity of the game. And I remember Bishop says that one of the things or attributes of Tiger was your interaction with your teammates, or you go over to the dress rooms at the end of the games, play, and what you do and how you go about doing it. The good thing for me on this occasion was that I had the good support of my captain and all the teammates. I mean, first of all, they were joking, and I'll never forget when Viv and Gordon Greenwich said to me, well, you did the right thing, because if you had run him out and we had won the game, there would have been riot. We were in Lahore saying, back in those days, when Javid me and Dad get out, it's problem. So they might have been right, but it's just something you live and you learn. Eventually, Quadia went to win the match, and the rest is history. When I started earlier, I just mentioned to you about my home ground, Sabina Park. Now, I don't know if a lot of you know, but right where Sabina Park is where we have probably the most hospitals. It's probably the only ground close to so many hospitals on a world map basis. I mean, there's like 15, 20 hospitals around Sabina Park. The reasons for that is that we play a lot of cricket there in club cricket and first class cricket. And I promise you, whenever there's a weekend when there's a match on, in that area, the hospitals are kept very busy. They have more doctors and nurses working on the weekend than they have during the week, because every weekend someone is in the hospital when we play. I remember this game, Jamaica playing against the Leeward Islands. The batsmen were Richie Richardson, Viv Richards, a guy called Ralston Otto, Luther Kelly, just to name a few, Eldine Baptiste, Benjamin Ambrose wasn't playing yet. And on the fielding team was Michael Holding, Patrick Patterson, Courtney Walsh. And within the first hour, there was 5 guys in the hospital. Seriously, Patterson had broken a nose, he had hit a high, someone's wrist was broken, and Viv got out, caught by me hooking off Patterson. And when the number 7 guy got hit again, for the 6th one to go to the hospital, they had also to take him to another hospital because this one was overcrowded. They didn't have enough doctor. That was the whole nature of we playing first class cricket and having fast bowlers in the Caribbean. And I think because of that, they set up enough hospitals around Sabina Park to ensure that when test cricket was on, the players got looked after. But it just goes to show how hard we play our cricket, what we do, and it was fearless. People complain about the battery of fast bowlers, but every team in the Caribbean used to have 4. And from a captaincy point of view, that's why someone like Tiger Pataudi, who got his 4 spinners, that was his strength. Clive Lloyd had his 4 seamers, that was strength. And with Virat Kohli doing it, the Australians used to do it until they had McGrath and Warren. The Sri Lankans had Mulitaran, so they would build their thing against spin. And that's what the captain's prerogative and what the captain wants to do. The most important thing as well as a cricketer, and we heard Bishop Betty talking about it, and I mentioned my respect for Imran Khan, Kapil Dev, and stuff like that, is that when you play the game, you develop friendship. And I mean, it's no secret that I had a very special partnership with the long, gangling Courtney Ambrose. They say pace bowlers don't impair. And I cannot but mention about my partnership with my good friend Courtney. Together we have had some memorable victories. They used to affectionately call us Scuddy and Amby. The success we got was not merely because we were good bowlers, but we were good friends also. We had a great understanding among us, both on and off the field. Even today we keep in touch regularly. Probably many of you don't know that he's the bassist, the guitar in a band. Now, what I find very funny in this one is that He's now moved on to his second band, but the first band he was playing in, the name of the band was called The Dread and the Ballhead. Now, I don't know when last any of you have seen a picture of Courtney, but he's got low shaven hair, almost like me, and then he's got one dread thing sticking up in his ear. So I said to him, is that to signify the band? He said, yes. I said, but you're neither dread nor ballhead. You know, just get the thing off and be normal. But he didn't listen to me. Now, he's moved on to another band, and the name of that band is now called Spirited. So I says to him, does that mean you're going to be drinking lots of spirits? And to date, he hasn't answered me because he is the tightest person I know. Just like when you see him bowling on the field, and he doesn't want to give any run away, when you're in the bar, he would not buy you a drink. He would not buy you a drink. So he's just as tight as that. But he's my friend. And he will always be my friend and like a brother to me. So I remember we had, plans how to get Sachin Tendulkar out because the little master was like a thorn in our flesh. And Kurt and I would sit down and discuss what we think, how we think we should bowl. And a few times we did get him out, so I would say that our plans did work. And as a captain, as my friend, I'm happy that we had that understanding because, as you know, when Sachin is on the go, he's on the go. And back in those days, we saw him as the more or less the linchpin behind India's batting. I am sure Tiger Pataudi used the plan for his opponents. People might think it's so easy when you have champion bowlers like that, like myself or Courtney. But it's not easy. It's not easy to have 4 fast bowlers or 4 spinners at a time and operate them successfully. All bowlers coming from different regions and different background, different upbringing, whether you be spinners, fast bowlers or whatever, you still need someone to lead. And with my research, what I have found is that Tiger wasn't just a remarkable cricketer, but he was probably one of the best Indian captain that has ever graced the game. And for his success, as a role model, he'll probably remain forever. I mean, what he has done for Indian cricket and what he has done for the game cricket on a whole was one of the main reasons why when I was asked to come and deliver this lecture, I could not say no, because you hear so much about him as a young cricketer playing, and then it's like a dream for me and an honor to be asked to come to interact with you and to sort of pass on my West Indian experience on such an auspicious occasion. Now, I didn't realize I was the first West Indian to be here to deliver this lecture. So I tried to come as an Indian, and that's probably why I'm, dressed this way. But I hope I have not offended anyone in any way. It's been tremendous. I want to really thank everybody who has been involved in getting me here. I mean, from the Bangladesh Cricket Board that gave me permission, to the airlines, the sponsors, everybody who has been involved in putting it together at reasonably short notice, because I was supposed to be heading back to the Caribbean after our tour in Bangladesh against Sri Lanka. And then with everything happening, I thought, no, this is an opportunity not to miss. Plus, I've not been to Calcutta, and one of the memories I have at Calcutta that I have to mention is that when I came here and played, both as captain once and just as a normal player, the one thing I used to remember here is that regardless of what's happening, at some point in time in the game, there used to be lights in the stadium. It wasn't what we see in the phone today. It was no phone lights, it was no flashlight. There were lighting newspaper, and everybody had fire. It was real fire. And that's what I remember, real fire. I remember on one occasion, it got so close that we thought we were going to burn the stadium down. But that is what the people of Calcutta, it's not just the city of love, it's the city of light and fire. In ending, right, I have never met Tiger, never played with or against him, but you have got to love him, admire him, once you hear those stories about him. Fittingly enough, I am attached to a team in the neighboring country who are nicknamed Tigers. After accepting this lecture, I have been given the interim head coach of the Tigers. So Tiger, you are a lucky captain for me. I want to wish his family all the best. I want to thank, as I said, everyone before, also the ABP, for giving me the opportunity to speak. Before I remember my good friend from the Telegraph asking a question. So before I finish, I just want to give you one last antidote of, he asked if I was ever sworn at or if I used to swear at the batsman. What I did, I can take this off now. What I did back in those days, I didn't swear at the batsman, I didn't speak a lot. I would just, as you said, give them the evil eye. So I look at the batsman and he knows what's coming. Plus, not many batsmen is going to have a chat with, he's 5'2" and I'm 7 foot. Who's going to argue with me? So in my playing days, I didn't get much sledging or swearing at, but on one occasion, and am I allowed to swear? I don't want to offend anybody, but this is just, I'm just going to give you the true reflection of what happened in a test match. Playing against England in my native Sabina Park, and we won the toss and put England into bat, and I'm bowling. And I'm like, I think the crowd back in, we just had the mound build up in Sabina Park, so the crowd was my home crowd and they're cheering me on. And I'm really having a good time, bowling reasonably okay. And after 8 over, Richie Richards come to me and says, take a break. So I said, no problem, still fine. When the over finished, the crowd behind says, one more. So Richie look at me, I look at the crowd, and they all said one more. So I bowl one more. 9th over, the same thing. 10th over, the same thing. And my legs are now getting a little bit weary. But you're pleasing the crowd, and I was still bowling well enough to continue. And I remember bowling this bouncer to Mike Atherton. And all I heard was, you can't. Why is he calling me that? He's never done that before. And we have had mutual respect for each other. So the next delivery now, for some reason, I forget I had bowled 12 overs. And I went down and gave him one of the quickest bouncer I could bowl. Missed his nose by a whisker. And when he was on flat on his ass, I went over and looked at him and says, so who are you calling a cunt? And he looked at me like in a daze. Next delivery, gloved it, Jimmy Adams catch him. And I didn't give him the send-off like this, but I sort of tell him where to go, and he was off. Now, we have had a good friendship and relationship over the years, so I thought, where did this come from? But to his credit, and this is a true story, to his credit, at the end of that spell, when we were going off, I think, for the lunch break, and we were going off the field, I saw him coming, so I was getting ready for a fight, because he's coming onto the field of play. I'm walking off, and I thought, well, it's going to be a confrontation. And he came up and he says, Courtney, I am apologizing. I think there was a misunderstanding. I was not calling you a cunt. I was calling myself because of the way I played the delivery. And I'm being honest, I believed him, because he was never one to swear. And I'm thinking, well, why would he want to swear at me when I'm bowling so fast? So he said it was his mistake, and he apologized, and our friendship got better after that. So apologies sometimes do work, and we have to be man enough to accept it, and I accepted his apology, and we served on committees together. We talk about the game, we have our own opinions, and to me, Mike was a very good leader of men as well. So it's good to have that rivalry, but also to have that respect. So just to answer a good question, that yes, I was swearing, but it was never, I've never really had bad sledging, so to speak. I am very thankful for the opportunity. I hope that you keep the Tigers in your prayers, like you will keep the Tiger family in your prayers when I go to do battle in Sri Lanka for the Tri-Nations Cup, even though there'll be an Indian team there. I know that the captain, from what I'm reading, won't be there, and MS Dhoni won't be there, but we're not there to play against individual, we're there to play against the Indian team, and I'm hoping that my team can give a very good account of themselves, and that we can have a very enjoyable and productive Tri-Nation series. And being selfish and being given the task of the interim head coach for the Tigers, I want the Tigers to roar to great heights, and if it means that we might have to upset a little, we don't want to upset everybody, but a few people here or in Sri Lanka, I will make no apology. I would love for that to happen. And I'm hoping that if it does happen, you still give me your support, and that we have had a wonderful evening here. Thank you very much for inviting me. And God bless.